Online communities are a goldmine for finding customer advocates who can supercharge your product launch. But too often, companies rely on things like email blasts and paid campaigns, completely overlooking the power of engaged customers. So within your own community are passionate advocates ready to champion your product and influence others. Their enthusiasm not only spreads the word, but also builds trust with newer customers seeking validation. Leveraging these voices in a launch isn't just about buzz. It's about creating credibility, driving adoption, and igniting that word-of-mouth growth that sustains long after the launch. So with that, it is my pleasure to have Kaavya Gupta on the show today. You guys, I have been so impressed with Kaavya since I first met her back in 2019. Kaavya currently leads a product marketing team at Reddit, where she cares for products that make it easy for anyone to find and engage with communities on Reddit. But her foundation in product marketing stems from her experience across a number of verticals, from grocery e-commerce in India to enterprise SaaS at Twilio. You can bet she has a wealth of knowledge to share from these diverse audiences. But in every situation, she dives so deep into understanding the end user. And that's why she's going to have something really special to share with all of you today on the show. She takes a keen interest in the creative arts. If you're on Spotify, try searching her name. You might see some nursery rhymes from a past project Kaavya did with Sony Music in India. Kaavya, it is so lovely to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Elle. Thanks for having me. And thanks for that intro. I'm just so glad that our paths got to cross again, especially in the context of product marketing. I'm excited to chat about my experience. I've been a PMM in the B2B space and B2C, and products might be different. The end user might be different. But, ultimately what I've seen is that effective marketing is really anchored in authenticity. And it's ultimately driven by the users, not by the brand or business. So I'm really excited to chat about all of that today.
Yes, so the customer-centric approach is so real. Okay, so let's dive right in. Tell me about your role at Reddit and more about how your team makes it easy to find and engage in communities.
Yeah, for sure. So I lead a product marketing team, which is basically focused on building meaningful consumer experiences on the Reddit platform. And that means pretty much helping anyone kind of find and participate in conversations and communities that are relevant to them, kind of creating new ways for people to engage with each other on the platform and making these community experiences really accessible to everyone globally.
Yeah. So this topic of community experiences is going to be the heart of our topic for today. So the first segment of our show, I want to start with this case study of how you leveraged community advocates in a community-driven product launch. So let's talk more about this. What was going on with the product as you were preparing for the launch?
Yeah, so I'm going to walk you through a set of updates that we launched last year. So just to give you some context, the comments section is what people come to Reddit for. It's basically where all the Redditor knowledge is accessible. And last year, we made some foundational updates to the comments experience. And that includes kind of faster comment loading. So we made some performance updates, new navigational UX to the comments. So just making it easier for people to get to the comments, and consistent flows in and out of the comment section as well. So regardless of whether you're consuming a text post or an image post or a video post, we want to make sure that people are finding their ways to the comments easily. Now, these were individual efforts that were basically working towards making Reddit the best in the world at conversations, right? And so again, going in and out of comments from the main feed is a core user journey on the platform. And any update that we make to that flow could mean a make or break for the user, right? So it was really important that these updates land. So we brought the Reddit community along with us. We co-created with a group of Redditors who expressed interest in wanting to test out early builds, and they provided us feedback, and that really informed our product positioning as well. We knew that the only way to get buy-in from the community and build a better experience was to include the community in the process. And so we announced all of these individual updates that I shared earlier as a package, to really show the cumulative value that this unlocks for users, and simply just making comments easier and faster. And again, like this was a bundle and a package that we created for the community with the community.
I love that. Okay, so often, especially in the SaaS world, as PMMs, we'll have small features that we'll have to launch into the world and into the community. And it can be so hard to launch several new little features at once. And finding a creative way to do it, especially using customers, isn't something that you see too often. So I loved that you were able to not only achieve bundling together multiple small features and making something bigger with it, but leveraging customers to do it. At Cisco, we talk a lot about, what the launch vehicle is going to be for a product launch. Your launch vehicle is for your customers. So that's amazing. Okay, so tell me more about what the result was.
Yeah, no. So when we launching it together actually as a bundle kind of created this overall seamless comments experience for users, right? Where we could really highlight the value that we were bringing both at the time of users kind of reading and finding their posts on the feed to then going to the comments from the feed and scrolling through the comment section. So really being able to show how we were introducing a new update at every step of that user journey, again, just showed bigger picture. And then through this launch, we actually built an official feedback loop with now over 100 users who have helped us test early builds for so many products that followed this one. And so that was a huge win for us. And we're so excited to be working with these Redditors because the feedback that they've given us so early on in the process has been so meaningful, not only from a product perspective, but also kind of thinking through how we can better message it in the market.
I love it. The feedback loop, that must have been so amazing for product, also to influence your messaging. Okay, I'm inspired as a PMM officially. So let's say that I wanted to try to replicate this or iterate on it somehow in my world. I'm trying to use a community-driven approach, leveraging advocates for an upcoming product launch. I guess to start, how would I know whether or not that approach is a good fit for my product launch? What are the attributes of that scenario?
I would probably say two things. One, kind of really understanding which audience your product touches, how your products would impact them, whether it be good or bad, and what really matters to that audience, right? So on Reddit, Redditors are really influenced by their communities. Communities are also where conversations start on the platform. And so for us, as we think about product marketing, we really wanted to start at the core. Again, consumers, users, people don't want to be marketed at, right? And we know that they absorb more information when it's voiced by their communities, by their networks. And so it was really important for us to really start at the core, which was the community. And then I think the second piece is once you're clear on who that audience is, you really need to understand their context. So the changes that I just spoke about, it impacts all users, right? It impacts our core users. These are the people who are probably coming on the platform every day and have their set ways of engaging with Reddit. And then you also have the casual folks who are probably coming in to find something very specific. And so for our core users, some of our core users are also community moderators. They're also the most trusted on the platform. So it was really important for us to get them in the loop early, not only to kind of get their feedback, but then also build their trust through this effort, which would ultimately build trust with the rest of the community. And I think tactically what we did on the PMM side is in our go-to-market documentation, we created a grid, right? With the audience type, what matters to them, the degree of impact to each of those segments, and then what would the expected sentiment be for those audience groups. And then this should really give you a good sense of which audience you want to start with and where you want to begin that go-to-market motion.
I love that approach. And I love that you included the sentiment for the customers or for each of those segments. That is so often overlooked. When I look at messaging with product marketers that I've worked with and multiple organizations, that how does it make you feel? That is just often overlooked, like the emotion of it. That was brilliant to include that. Okay, so again, I'm trying to replicate it for myself or as a PMM. It sounds like a way that I could abstract this is looking at my advocates, my passionate users, and figuring out their context and which communities, if any, they are most active in. What's next? Where do I go from there?
Probably step one, as you kind of start building this out, is one, do your homework, right? And to what you just said about highlighting sentiment, all of that comes after you've done the homework, right? You're then being able to make a hypothesis on, okay, how will these updates or how will this product launch really make this audience feel? So I would say first, do your homework, gather all of your inputs, and then formulate a strategy on that based on execution. So what we did was we identified the audience segments and again, why this product matters to them, what we just chatted about, and then do some user research. So like we did some primary research, secondary, so you can talk to users one-on-one or just based on past research that has been done or previous product launches, like what takeaways can you pull from that? And then you assess the impact of the product on those specific audience segments. And then you opportunity size as well, right? Like for us, because these updates were impacting all users, it was important for us to prioritize kind of which segment we go after first. And then once you have a better understanding of what your audience is, you build the narrative and the messaging around that. And then you use that to sort of build buy-in internally and get your stakeholder teams aligned before you can start the kind of execution phase of the process.
Yeah, I have to double down on what you said is do the homework.
Yeah.
Do the research. Such a great tip. It's really tempting as a product marketer because we're storytellers. It's fun. It's the fun part of being a PMM. It's easy to just jump right into the messaging or leverage really low-hanging fruit customers, friendly customers, but staying true to best practices and studying customer segments and going for like the best fit customers and advocates is a really great tip. Okay, so what happens after that?
We just completed the inbound and next comes the outbound, right? This is the execution phase. So I'd say that the next big chunk of the work that we did on the go-to-market planning side was chalk out the key phases of the activation strategy, right? And each phase can be defined by a specific goal. And then you work back from the launch date to figure out when each phase should happen and how long each phase should be. So again, just like taking the launch that I just spoke to, phase one was really about feedback collection. And that feedback was also really important to us because that also helped inform our messaging and positioning. And let's just say phase one was X number of weeks. And then phase two was really about internal enablement and socialization across our teams, right? Making sure that our sales teams were equipped to talk about these like large consumer updates with our advertisers, making sure other kind of product teams that could be working on these surfaces where we were making updates to the comments, like they were aware that this was happening and the message that we were planning to push out. So phase two was really about kind of internal alignment. And then phase three is kind of your activation stage, right? This is where you're talking about the launching the product both on and off platform. And then, of course, you track and measure, whether that be sentiment, whether that be chatter, whether that be engagement, whichever metrics you're kind of focusing on. But yeah, I would say like the outbound is the next phase is really about kind of chalking out the execution plan and figuring out when and why you would be doing those activations.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just for clarity, so you mentioned activation strategy. What are examples of that? Is that the 3 phases you mentioned, or is that something else?
Yeah, so I think activations is basically what you're going to do in each of those phases. So phase one, what I said, was really about building feedback loops. So what does a feedback loop mean? In our case, we had to recruit the Redditors who were interested in testing out early builds, make sure they were equipped with the builds, making sure that we were collecting the feedback from them and then relaying those back to product, and then also being able to use that feedback for our messaging and positioning. So that was kind of the main activation for phase one. And then phase two was essentially the same thing, but for employees. So this was like the internal alignment phase where we were collecting feedback from employees who had access to the build and making sure that we were collecting that feedback from them, equipping the sales teams, making sure we had the enablement materials in place, and kind of building internal awareness through the channels that we had available to us. And then phase three, which was kind of the launch phase, the few activations in there was one, kind of closing the loop with the users that we were collecting feedback from them, right? Showing them, okay, this is the feedback that we got from you. Here's how we incorporated it. Here's the final build. Like, what do you think? Rolling out the announcement comms, both to the community and to the broader market, and then in product education as well, right? Making sure that people who are engaging with the app were aware of the changes that we were making to the experience. And so that's pretty much the activation piece, which is the task or the action you are taking to achieve whatever goal it is in each phase.
Got it. Okay, super helpful. All right, so backing up for a minute. First, I do the research. I define the segments. I chalk out the key phases of activation. You mentioned feedback loop, internal enablement?
Yes.
What was that? Okay. And then basically close the loop with customers. So within that, where does building the messaging come in? Is that part of the feedback loop with customers?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of an ongoing process, both in kind of phase one and phase two. So we had 3 phases, which was user feedback loop, you can say internal feedback loop, and then the launch portion, right? So I guess before phase 3, you're kind of building and iterating the messaging as you collect the feedback and incorporate the feedback. And I mean, going again back to the launch that we were just talking about, for us, we actually landed on a very simple message, which was easier, faster comments for Reddit. It sounds really easy, but it took all of that feedback to finally help us get there because that feedback informed, okay, which of these product updates should we be bundling together? What does each product update ultimately deliver for the user? And then higher level, what does it mean for the overall experience? And does that higher level message really resonate with the community? Like all of that, even for those 5 or 6 simple words, it took all of that for us to be able to get there. So to your question, I think the messaging, while we started with the vision and a goal for what the messaging should be, I think we were fine-tuning alongside phase 1 and phase 2 up until the point that we reached phase 3.
Yeah, even for those 5 little words, it takes a lot of iteration. I bet PM was just thrilled with how well you and your team were able to not only keep them so well informed into this process, but also bringing customers in. So I guess before you even decided to go this route with this community-driven, advocate-driven launch process, how did you get the PMs to buy into that?
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, we had a great experience working with our product partners. I think we went into this knowing that PMM is essentially the CMO of the product, right? And so we wanted to be strategic partners to our PMs, and we co-created the go-to-market strategy with them. I mean, we started really early, and we shared our homework, which is what we spoke about earlier, which was we shared more about the market landscape. We kind of outlined the risks, the opportunities, the audience segments, and kind of various approaches and paths that we could take from a go-to-market perspective. And then we worked with them to fine-tune and figure out what that path or approach should be. The other thing that we did was, sharing a narrative headline early, like share a vision. And that's what really excites product, and it excites the broader stakeholder cross-functional team as well, because it gives the entire team a better idea of, or a North Star that we're working towards. So I think that was something that worked well for us. And given that this was one of our bigger product announcements, we factored in time for reviews and discussions, right? We factored in time for that co-creation process with our product partners, because we wanted product and product leadership to be aligned with the plan, and kind of before us as PMM started rallying the troops, right? You know better than anyone, product marketing is kind of working with 5, 6, 7 other teams to really get a go-to-market in motion. And so before we started kind of rallying those troops, it was important for us to get higher level alignment with product and leadership on kind of how we were approaching this. And now this has kind of become a model for most of our launches, which is kind of sharing all of our inbound work, sharing higher level vision or where we see this going, and then using that as foundation to then fine tune tactics, outbound, etc.
I love that. And something that you said I think is worth saying again is coming up with a vision and that like headline, like PR headline, press headline to try to gain excitement from PM. Such a fantastic idea. I think so often I feel like PMMs are having to prove themselves to PM almost, but coming in hot with that, with a vision is a good way to ignite the enthusiasm. Such a fantastic idea. So after you launched, how did this impact your success metrics? Or like if you look at what a standard launch process looked like versus this, community or advocate driven launch process, do you think it influenced the business metrics differently?
Yeah, so for this launch on the go-to-market perspective, since these were foundational kind of UX updates, success for us was more measured by how the community responded to them. So we wanted this to be additive to like the core user journey or the core job that's being performed on Reddit, right? Which was jumping in and out of conversations. And the launch was received really well, with Redditors really feeling like they're part of the process. Like I mentioned earlier, coming out of this, we actually made this feedback loop official. And now we have this set group of Redditors who are constantly giving us feedback early on in the product development process. And this model of co-creation has become a known best practice with the broader community as well. So now when we refer to the work that we've been doing with this group of Redditors, people across Reddit know what we're talking about. And this has kind of become a benchmark for the rest of the community too. So I'd say that's how we measured success for this one.
Awesome. I love that it became this like proven, tried and true approach. And now you have this large group of advocates that are basically your field trial customers. I bet your PM team is just so thrilled to be working with you guys. Okay, so last question for you, Kaavya, sort of on this topic, but slightly different. So what advice do you have for a product marketer who just wants to try something new? And maybe it's try something new like this, like a totally different approach to product launches. What advice do you have for PMMs to use in their career?
Yeah, so I would say, like I said earlier, as a PMM, you are CMO of the product and quite frankly, CEO of the overall go-to-market strategy. And what's worked really well for me is one, thinking ahead, which is what we just spoke about, kind of doing your homework, communicating early, and deliver simple messaging, right? And an anecdote that comes to mind when I was at Twilio, Twilio had complex products, right? With all the possible buzzword features to wow kind of any enterprise buyer. But ultimately what we saw was that the messaging that really worked best for that audience was one, how does this help me and what matters to me? And two, show me the data to prove it. And so I'd say like the simple and the more direct you make it in terms of how it impacts what matters to your user or customer, I'd say the better you'd likely be in terms of your messaging landing. And then in your go-to-market proposal, we discussed this, but in the proposal or documentation or template, whatever you use, write down your vision for what story you want to land. Again, it may not be the story that you eventually end up going out with, but it's just helpful to start with some sort of a baseline. I'd say the second thing to include is any assumptions you're using in order to make the plan or the message, and validate these assumptions early. Like I've been in scenarios where you use certain assumptions and much later on in the process, you realize that the assumptions that your whole plan was based on was actually not true. And so validate those assumptions early. And then the third thing would be kind of chalk out your go-to-market approaches with the impact, the risks, and then evaluate which approach makes sense with the rest of your team, right? Have a few paths laid out, know what your risks are, and then collectively make a decision on how to take things forward.
Amazing. I love it. So, one of the first things you said that stood out to me is you are the CMO of your product and the CEO of overall go-to-market. Let's empower PMMs. Take control over the future of your product and be the CMO. Own it. That's something that I share with my PMMs on my team all the time. You're the CMO. You have the authority. I'm empowering you. Make the decisions on your own. And I think once you have that, it's so much easier to follow your gut and to do the research and build out a go-to-market proposal you can be confident in. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so now it's time for our second segment. This is the messaging critique. So this is where we, as product marketers, are going to analyze real-world messaging. But here's the fun part. You, Kaavya, my guest, get to choose the company. So before we get started, let me tell you about the ground rules for this. So once you pick the company, we're going to talk about three things. First, you're going to tell me something that you love about the messaging or the product. What's working really well? What makes the product stand out? And then you're going to tell me something that you wish the PMM would have done differently, maybe something that could have taken the messaging, made the messaging more clearer or stronger or more impactful. And then third, let's iterate a little bit. So where do you think the PMM could take this messaging next? Are there fun, creative campaigns they could use or pursue? That sort of thing. So this is all about learning and refining our craft. No negativity, just a thoughtful, constructive critique. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so tell me about a product or company that has caught your attention, good, bad, or somewhere in between.
Yeah, so sticking with the theme of community marketing, have you heard of Duolingo?
I have heard of Duolingo, but nothing beyond that. So tell me more.
So Duolingo, some folks might know about it. It's a language learning app, and their ethos is on making language learning fun and free. I think they have like 40 plus languages now and have expanded to non-language courses as well with music and maths.
Oh, fun. Okay, so I just pulled up their website. Super cute illustrations, the most adorable little owl. I don't know what it is with owls. It's like the big eyes. They're so lovable. I love it. Okay, so cute little owl. Their messaging headline on their homepage reads, "The free, fun, and effective way to learn a language."
It's
With
true.
an exclamation point, which not all websites or homepages have any
It's all
punctuation
about
at
the
all.
fun. Yeah.
But I love, yeah, like this screams it's coming from a millennial.
Yeah, and so I think in terms of who Duolingo is targeting, it's pretty much anyone who wants to learn a language, but I think it's for people who have obviously an interest in learning a new language, and most likely the casual learner. So those who don't need to learn a language but are just interested in learning one. And again, with the whole free aspect, it's for folks who may or may not have the means to take a formal language course. So I imagine this is targeted at Gen Z, millennials. My partner, very much a millennial, is riding the Duolingo train hard.
So great. Okay, so what are you loving about this messaging?
Yeah, so I think Duolingo marketing it's fun, it's bold, it's authentic, and the product's relatability is completely rooted in community, right? In fact, the Duo Owl, the owl that we were just talking about, it originated from the community and it started gaining momentum through community memes, right? There's a subreddit on Reddit called r/Duolingo, and you can see that like one of the first memes that came out around this owl is a meme of the language bird crying. Basically, it's a meme
Oh,
around how when you don't do like a language lesson, like how the bird reacts, and then on
the
the meme
bird
it
gets
says,
sad.
yeah. Yeah, like on the meme, it says, learn Italian today, or he will eat a poisoned loaf of bread, right? These really fun memes, and the community really caught on. And now you have Duo the Owl, which is kind of their like flagship mascot.
Mm,
I think the other thing here is that their authenticity is really memorable. So again, just referencing Reddit because Redditors are real. If you go on r/marketing, which is a marketing focused subreddit, lots of chatter about Duolingo. In fact, one of them says about Duolingo marketing, it doesn't need to be groundbreaking. Duo is a natural, and being natural is key, right? So it's just all about just being real. Genuine, exactly. And the second part is I think they're good storytellers, right? Their messaging is like really anchored in conversations that are happening in the community today. And it's simple and it's very grounded in social proof. And that's what also informs their channel choices. You see them primarily on social media, and it's where their audience is at, which Gen Z and millennials, and where the conversation is taking place. And I think the third thing is just on the topic of social proof is they've created a space for people to advocate for Duolingo with each other, right? And they've kind of used similar mechanics in their product as well, which is what makes the experience just so attractive. It's everything is just about community. I think that's what's really fun and great about them.
Yeah, so they did a really fantastic job, not only with their leaning into their fun branding
Yeah.
and the messaging and storytelling, but they did a really great job of matching their go-to-market strategy with segmentation, understanding where their target market hangs out. Brilliant. I love it. Okay, so what's something the PMM should have considered or can consider, or maybe we can jump right into how they can iterate further. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah. And this is me being the outsider here. I'm sure they've considered all of this, but Duolingo has aced the art of getting people hooked, right? I see it with my partner. He will go out of his way to make sure that he doesn't break his streak. And if you ask him why, it's purely a way of kind of challenging himself, and that's what he enjoys. And I think that fun and enjoyment has it very clearly comes through in their marketing. But one thing that I feel as a consumer who's not yet on the Duolingo train is really understanding how effective the app or the product is in actually teaching me the language. If I'm investing every day in this, which it seems
Your
like
time. It's the most
yeah,
valuable thing you have.
and I know I'm going to be hooked because I, like my partner, like to challenge myself and want to make sure I'm not breaking my streak. I want to know if I'm actually learning something, right? Like, am I actually learning the language? So it would be really cool to see in their marketing if there were some proof points and just like greater awareness of the tools that are available in the product that aid the process of language learning. I'd say that's probably the one thing that I've not seen. Again, this is something that they've probably considered, but it'd be cool to see more of.
Yeah. I'm looking on their website. They say backed by science. And I'm curious about that. I'm like, well, tell me more.
Yeah, tell me more.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, and then where can they take it further?
Yeah, I think there's such a big opportunity with streaming. Their audience is exposed to so much content in non-native languages and so deeply influenced by pop culture. Like, wouldn't it be so cool to have a product marketing campaign where you can translate your favorite K-drama episode or an episode of Friends for non-English speakers using the tools that Duolingo has? I mean, that would be so amazing.
How fun. Such a great way to like, because Gen Z, millennials, we love connection, especially online. I could see there being so much chatter around something like that.
Yeah, that would be really cool. But yeah, that was an idea that I thought of. But anyway, just hats off to Duolingo. They've done some great work. Obviously, amazing product, and I'm excited to see what more comes out of their marketing team.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Duolingo, shout out to the PMMs. You've got some fans. So great work over there. Okay, so Kaavya, before we go, I want to give a gratitude moment and say thank you so much to you for your willingness to share your expertise and your knowledge with us in the product marketing community. I'm so inspired by PMMs like yourself. Then I'm curious, who are one or two PMMs who have impacted your career?
Yeah, for sure. Before I get into that, I want to thank you and for just giving us PMMs a space to talk about our experiences and share whatever little knowledge that we have. And I'm so excited to hear from all the other PMMs on this podcast. So really appreciate again
Yeah.
you invited me. I would say the PMMs that I want to call out are one, my current PMM colleagues at Reddit, Rachel Weber Calloway and Ali Afshar. Redditors are a tough crowd to please. They are our
Yes.
biggest fans and our biggest critics. And both Rachel and Ali are just so good at understanding the beat of our user and kind of packaging products in a way that really show value. I'd say the second person is my dad, Vikas Gupta. He's been in marketing for 25 plus years in the fast moving consumer goods space, both in India and in the US. And I've always watched him observe, and I've seen him observe not only how his product is placed on the shelf, but where it is placed in the context of the others and how a consumer responds to that, right? The consumer space it's so fast, things change so rapidly, and
Yes.
usually the impact of that is never seen in silos. And I think just seeing how he has navigated his marketing career has really pushed me to keep my eyes and ears open for what's happening in the broader landscape. And that's what I've taken forward in all of my PMM experiences as well.
Oh, it must be so fun to be able to talk shop with your dad about marketing. Oh, I love that. Oh, hats off to your dad. Amazing. Okay, last question for you, Kavya. Where else can we access your expertise? Is it just best for the audience to find you on LinkedIn?
Yes, yeah. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, DM me, or send me a friend request. I think the spelling of my name should be in the description of this episode. Yeah, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm excited to chat more PMM or otherwise.
Awesome. Thank you, Kavya. And thank you to our PMM listeners for coming on this adventure with us today. I hope this episode leaves you with inspiration in taking the next step in your own journey. That's all for today.